Tuesday's 2024 presidential campaign. Joining me now, former RNC Communications Director Doug Heye, Liam Donovan, and Maria Cardona are still here with us. I just want to put this in, because it reminds me of that book, that No Good, Probable Bad Day, whatever it's called. Here is what Trump had to say last night in Iowa when he was asked, well, having a dangling of a carrot on this moment. Here he is.
In order to make our country successful and safe and glorious, I will very, very, very probably do it again, okay? Very, very, very probably. Very, very, very probably.
Well, Doug, will he very, very, very probably run? Or is there some political aspect of why he might not be announcing? Do you have a sense?
Let me say something about Donald Trump I've never said before. He was very consistent in his messaging right there.
Very, very probably.
Each time it was three varies. Yeah. So he has some message discipline, which we don't always see with him. Well, we know a few things about Donald Trump, right? One, he likes big pots of money that he can try and move around. If he formally announces, that changes. So we have to think about that. We also know that he likes playing the victim. So, and all these things conflict. If he announces, he can play the victim better. They're coming after me because it's politics. The other is Donald Trump loves attention. And, you know, we were talking over the summer that he might announce around July 4th, will he or won't he? And this goes back to one of the key things about Donald Trump. Everything he does is same bat time, same bat channel. We all tune in next week.
Well, listen, on that point of the money
and the
pots, I mean, well, it was very, very, very probably a good, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, look at this screen for a second, because here are the ways in terms of how it can move around a little bit, those pots of money, I want everyone to really understand. So if he were to announce a 2024 campaign, everyone, the RNC, by their own policy, not a lawful one, not based on legislative or otherwise or policy, they won't pay for his legal bills. If he announces they're limited to raising $2,900 from individuals and $5,000 from PACs, you've got the PAC not being able to underwrite campaign activities, no more personal fundraising with corporations and trade associations. So, I mean, Liam, there's a lot to just the announcement. It might be part of the idea of wanting to just get the attention of will he or won't he, but that's a quite hefty list of reasons that you don't have power over your purse any longer.
It is a heavy lift. He likes to have his pots of money. I think the thing that is striking fear in the hearts of Republican operatives right now is that timing. You mentioned mid-November. We might very well have a climactic runoff in the state of Georgia in early December, which sets up deja vu to how Republicans almost won, then lost the Senate majority last time. So I think that might be another factor, depending on how things shake out on Tuesday, is is Georgia going to a runoff, and is Herschel going to be affected by what he does?
That's true. Maria, also, I mean, I think Mike Pence's book comes out the 15th, right? I mean, not saying he's doing it the same day, but I mean, there's something about the 14th. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I think he might look at this and say, this is going to be my opportunity to clear the field, right? If he saw Ron DeSantis's ad, he's probably not going to like it, right? And then Mike Pence, he might just do it as an ego thing to clear the field and to tell everyone, I'm the God, not you, Ron DeSantis. I'm God, and I'm doing this right now. In terms of the RNC policy, if it's not law, the RNC can say, oh, we changed our mind. Even if you run, we're going to go ahead and pay your legal bills. I mean, they've done that before. And so that might not be something that keeps him from doing it. But one thing that could keep him on the track to doing it is perhaps he thinks it's protection from prosecution. Because then he'll say, well, I'm a candidate. And then, you know, maybe the DOJ will have to think twice about how they go about doing it. And then that's when they talk about the special counsel.
That's a good point, because you're mentioning, the special counsel discussion about whether or not to have the insulation of being able to say, look, we're not going after a political opponent. It's not a politicized department. But then there's almost the exhaustion factor in a way, right? I mean, you guys are both Republican operators and strategists on these things. I mean, if you're going into an announcement knowing I'm going to have to pay legal bills for you that are probably going to be one of many, does that count against the enthusiasm, you think? Or is the base that he has potentially enough to overshadow that?
The victimhood that Doug mentioned is powerful, and it's a financial driver. I mean, he taps into that to replenish those coffers, so it's a self-licking ice cream cone in a sense. But I don't think it necessarily puts a damper on it. But I think you can be very clever and dance this line, but at a certain point you have to jump. You either want the protection or you want to control your purse.
Yeah, and Maria actually I shouldn't say actually, very smartly talked about RNC
Maria,
policy. That's what I
obviously,
meant.
very smart.
I meant because you were talking about RNC policy,
Right.
not DNC policy.
Right.
One of the things that the RNC has is what's called Rule 11. And Rule 11 is an ironclad thing that says they can't get involved in primaries. Even if Kevin McCarthy is running for re-election, they can't get involved in his congressional primary unless the state of California Republican Party files a Rule 11 letter declaring him the candidate. Well, they can get rid of that rule whenever they want to,
Exactly.
especially if Donald Trump tells them to.
That's right.
They may be likely to do so, in which case the other candidates are going to be out of luck.
So the rules are there ain't no rules.
Right.
That's,
and
that's the crux.
we've seen Ronna McDaniel essentially kind of kneel at Donald Trump. I will do whatever you want. So, yeah.
Well, when you think about that, though, and going forward, I mean, you mentioned the idea of almost all of you are presuming that Trump would be the obvious RNC nominee. Do we think that's the case? I mean, DeSantis, his ad, albeit reminiscent of the Rams ad, and of course, the be a farmer notion. Do you think he could actually overtake him?
I think the fact that President Trump is down in Florida, kind of planting his flag, the fact that he's even flirting with this very, very probably stuff means that he hears footsteps and is trying to get out there to box out.
Yeah, and the party kind of breaks down like this. You've got 10% that will never vote for Donald Trump in any fashion. You've got 40% that will do anything Donald Trump wants to do. That's a marching order. About 50% voted for Trump. They sort of like him. Some of them are exhausted. They're looking at other people. But that core 40%, they are the most active in the primary process, and that gives Trump a huge leg up.
Just as President Biden's been talking about, and remember, he has himself said that is his intention to run for re-election, but he has not been as non-committal, but he also has not been as firm in saying, I absolutely will do so. And the midterm elections is really this clear mark, right? They've put down this as the key marker. So you got to wonder, not just with who is in power, but what else will change going forward. We're talking about 2024, but Allison, I mean, Tuesday is almost here, and that will be the key date in the days following that. And of course, we mentioned the prospect maybe even of a runoff, or if it's close and as deadlocked as people are predicting, we have a long road.
Oh, we're definitely going to have a long night, I can tell you that, on Tuesday. And I think that people are going to have to settle in and get comfortable because all of our experts have said we may not even know next week.
Yeah.
So we'll see. All right. Meanwhile, $1.6 billion. It's the biggest jackpot ever for the lottery. And before you start counting your money,